Some stories don't begin with a cry, but with a soft bark in the stillness of night. The story you're about to hear isn't a fairy tale. There's no magic here, no superheroes. Just a woman who once lost herself, a boy who lost his mother, and a limping stray dog, who walked into their lives like a flicker of warmth in a bitter winter. If you've ever loved a dog so deeply, it felt like part of your soul. If you're searching for a story to help you believe the world still holds hope, then this video is for you. Thank you for being here. And if you'd like to help me continue sharing healing stories like this, please don't forget to hit subscribe and leave a like. It truly means the world to this journey. Now let me take you back to the moment they found each other. Winter in Alaska isn't only cold because of the snow, but also because of the kind of loneliness that lingers like ice over the lake. In a small wooden cabin near Talkeetna Lake, 52-year-old Amelia Rose lived alone with the shadows of her past. Once a renowned war photographer, she had braved bullets and bombings in the Middle East to capture moments of life and death. But no one ever saw the last picture. She never took the portrait of her broken soul. After the war, Amelia returned with invisible scars. Each night was a new battle. Torn by nightmares, echoes of helicopters slicing through her dreams, her hands trembling, just trying to pour a cup of tea. She didn't speak to anyone, and no one came. One snow-white morning, after a panic attack that left a shattered glass on the kitchen floor, Amelia wrapped herself in a fur coat, grabbed her axe, and headed into the woods. She needed to do something, anything, to keep from thinking. But amidst the snow-covered trees, she heard a faint whimper. Beneath a bush caught in a rusted, bloodied trap was a black and white dog. Mud-matted fur, wide, frightened eyes. A border collie, a breed known for its sharpness, is now shivering like a child. Its paw was tightly clenched in the trap, the wound deep to the bone. Amelia froze, her heart slammed with memories of young soldiers she once photographed, their eyes meeting pain. Without hesitation, she knelt and opened the trap with her frozen hands silently, as if silence itself was the only comfort she could offer. "It's okay. You're not dying here tonight," she whispered again and again, like a prayer or maybe a promise to herself too. She brought the dog home, cleaned the blood dress to the wound, and gave him a name, Sparrow. Like the bird, fragile but impossibly resilient, she expected nothing from him. But a few days later, watching Sparrow clumsily chase a snowball she had thrown tumbling in joy, as if life had never hurt him, she laughed, a real laugh, her first in almost a year. From then on, the little cabin, once filled only with the lamps of panic, began to echo with gentle paw steps, the soft nudge of a nose on a kitchen door, and the occasional bark floating from a frosted window. Words weren't needed. Amelia and Sparrow began to share a silence, a kind of quiet only survivors understand. Beneath the icy sky of Alaska, in the long hush of healing, two broken souls found each other. And for the first time in years, Amelia no longer felt entirely alone. The lake stayed snow-covered as always, but that winter brought something different. Not more cold, but a quiet waiting. Just days after her 53rd birthday, Amelia received a call before dawn. A shaking voice informed her that her cousin Marianne had died in a car accident. The only one left was her 9-year-old son, Toby, and there was no one else to care for him but Amelia. She stood still, gripping the phone until her knuckles turned white. She couldn't remember the last time she saw Toby, maybe when he was too young to remember her. 2 days later, a small blue bus brought Toby to the cabin. He didn't speak, he didn't cry. Just clutched a worn-out backpack and a thick sketchbook, its pages curled at the edges, like his own small heart folded in. He didn't look her in the eyes. He just stood there, wide-eyed, soaked in a silence that screamed of betrayal, like the world had broken every last promise it once made to him. Amelia nodded, said nothing. She knew sometimes silence was kinder than words. The first days passed like mismatched puzzle pieces. Amelia didn't know where to begin. She had faced bombs and blood and bodies, but this warming a shattered heart, it was a whole different war. Toby didn't speak, he drew. Morning sketches at the dining table, afternoon scribbles by the window. At night, he curled around his notebook like it was a shield against the world. His drawings were dark and messy, houses with no doors, roads leading nowhere, faceless shadows. And every time a snowplow siren echoed from afar, Toby trembled. One night, he bolted into the kitchen cabinet, closing the door, as if hiding from a monster only he could see. Amelia stood there helpless. Her throat was thick with sorrow. Then one morning, while she brewed tea, Sparrow padded over to Toby. No bark, no leap. Just lay down beside him. Rested his head gently on the boy's knee, as if saying, I'm here for as long as you need. Toby stopped drawing. Minutes passed, then slowly his small hand reached out and stroked Sparrow's back. The first touch, the first trust. The next day, Sparrow brought over his old rubber ball and dropped it at Toby's feet. The boy stared puzzled. Then almost instinctively, he tossed it across the yard. Sparrow dashed after it, and then Toby laughed, short, shaky, almost surprised. But it was real. Amelia heard it from the kitchen and dropped her spoon. Tears welled in her eyes, not just from joy, but from mourning all those silent years her soul had forgotten how to feel. From that day on, Toby and Sparrow were inseparable. Where the boy went, the dog followed. At night, Toby slept soundly, curled up beside Sparrow like the dog was a blanket shielding him from a world too sharp. Amelia began to photograph again, with her old camera, with her journal, with her slowly thawing heart. Then one pale afternoon, while Amelia chopped wood out back, a sudden shout pierced the air. Not terror, but something more primal. Rage. She rushed inside. Toby stood in the living room sketchbook, fallen pages scattered like lost birds. On one page, a woman with soft curls, closed eyes, and lips mid-story. Amelia knew. Mary Ann. Toby trembled, fists clenched. He cried out, I don't want to forget her. I don't want to. Then he collapsed, sobbing fists against his forehead, the first tears since the accident. Amelia knelt beside him and said nothing, just placed a hand gently on his back. Sparrow lay next to them, tail brushing the floor, eyes knowing. There were no words enough for that moment, and Amelia understood sometimes healing begins not by stopping the tears, but by letting them fall. That night, alone by the fireplace, she opened Toby's sketchbook, now carefully gathered back. Flipping through, she saw the boy alone in the snow, a black and white dog pulling him out of a forest, a woman fading like mist in the distance. She suddenly understood. Toby wasn't just hurting because he lost his mother. He was terrified of losing the memory of her too, and the only thing pulling him back from that fear was a creature that never asked for words, never betrayed emotion, Sparrow. Amelia exhaled deeply. She once thought she was the one who needed saving. But now, in the flickering firelight, she saw more clearly than ever in this small, snow-covered cabin, there wasn't just one person healing. There were two. And a twig. On beside the dog, standing quietly between them like the soul of survival itself. That night, Amelia wrote a single line in her journal. I used to think I only needed to heal myself, but now I understand some wounds can only begin to mend when we help someone else heal first. She looked up at Toby, fast asleep, arms wrapped around his Sparrow, as if letting go might make the dog disappear. For a moment, Amelia saw herself again. The day she left the battlefield, afraid, hollow, with nothing to cling to in the world. Now it was different. She had Sparrow, she had Toby, and she had something she hadn't dared hope for in years of family. The small town of Heartwarming sat more than an hour's drive from Amelia and Toby's cabin, surrounded by pine forests and snow-covered hills. Every year in late winter, it hosted a special event, the Winter Search and Rescue Dog Skills Competition. Not just a game, but a tribute to dogs who could save lives from avalanches, deep woods, and winter storms. Toby had seen the event flyer at a local grocery store. He brought it home, his eyes sparkling with excitement. At the top of the flyer in big red letters, it read, Search, Response, Loyalty. Who will be this year's top rescue dog? Toby placed the flyer on the table, gently pushed it toward Amelia, then hugged Sparrow as if saying, I believe he can do it. Amelia looked at the flyer, then at Toby. She had never imagined entering Sparrow into a competition. To her, he wasn't a pet or a contestant. He was the last peaceful part of a life that had once fallen apart. Are you sure? She asked softly. Toby nodded. Then after a quiet pause, he scribbled a sentence on the back of the flyer, not to win, just so others can know how special Sparrow is. Amelia read the words, her heart tightening. She understood. Toby wasn't chasing a trophy. He was looking for a chance to say thank you. She nodded. All right, we'll give it a try. In the days that followed, the small cabin at the edge of the forest transformed into a training ground. Each morning, Amelia and Toby took turns guiding Sparrow through basic commands, sit, lie down, stay, and respond to a whistle. But soon they realized this dog didn't need much teaching. Sparrow learned by instinct. With survival skills sharpened from his days as a stray, He quickly picked up danger signs, tracked wind directions, and recognized objects buried beneath the snow. In one mock search exercise, Toby hid behind a pile of firewood, and Sparrow found him in just 45 seconds, sniffing and barking to alert. Toby laughed loud and free, louder than the wind. Amelia watched her two teammates and felt for the first time in her life that she was stepping out of the long shadow that had trailed her for years. As the competition day neared, Toby prepared a small red scarf for Sparrow, tying it around his neck like a medal. He wrote on the edge, "My hero." On the morning of the event, Heartwarming was busier than ever. Labradors, Huskies, Malinois gathered from all over alongside their well-dressed handlers. Sparrow, with his simple black and white coat, bright eyes, and red scarf, stood out in his way. No professional trainer, no fancy equipment, just Toby and Amelia, and a bond that couldn't be broken. The trials began under a light snowfall. Teams had to complete challenges, locate a mock victim buried under snow, navigate obstacles, and respond to emergency cues. When Sparrow's turn came, the whole crowd seemed to hold its breath. A whistle blew. Toby pointed toward a mock tent where the victim was hidden. Sparrow sprinted like the wind nose twitching. In under a minute, he stopped and barked loudly. Correct. Second test, retrieve an object buried 30 centimeters beneath icy snow. Amelia held her breath as Sparrow paused, sniffed, then carefully unearthed a glove and brought it back. Perfect. On and on, Sparrow completed every task smoothly, naturally, as if he was born for this. When the trial ended, the applause was thunderous. Some spectators stood in admiration. Amelia turned and saw one of the judges, Bradley Sloan, a young trainer, staring at Sparrow. He didn't clap, he didn't smile, just watched, with hunger. A chill ran down her spine. The award ceremony took place that evening in the town hall. Warm lights, gentle music, and soft conversations filled the space. Toby sat beside Sparrow, his face glowing with pride. When the winners were announced, Sparrow received the Best Response Dog award. Toby clapped until his palms turned red. He didn't need first place. That alone was more than enough. Amelia felt every effort, every scar, every step out of the abyss had been worth it. That night, they returned to their inn room in town, resting early after a long day. Amelia locked the door, hung Sparrow's leash on the wall, and smiled. Tomorrow they would return to the cabin. And maybe spring would come early. The next morning, Amelia awoke to silence. No barking, no soft paws. She walked into the living room. The crate door stood wide open. The leash still hung in place, but Sparrow was gone. "Toby!" she shouted, rushing to his room. Toby sat up, blinking, then froze. His eyes widened and his chest rose and fell rapidly. "Where's Sparrow?" They both ran outside, checked every hallway, called his name aloud, asked the staff, and questioned the doorman. But no one had seen a dog leave. No barking, no signs, no struggle. It was as if he vanished into thin air. Toby collapsed on the front steps of the hall, his lips trembled, eyes welling with tears. Amelia stood frozen beside him. Her body went cold. In her mind, one image flashed vividly: Bradley Sloan, that haunting look from last night, the way he had stared at Sparrow like a rare prize. No, this wasn't an accident. It couldn't be. Someone had taken him. After their glorious night of victory, the small inn room turned painfully empty. No more soft thumps of a tail on wooden floors. No more loyal black eyes gazing toward the window each morning. Sparrow was gone. Amelia and Toby were like souls adrift. Toby said nothing, simply holding the red scarf that had been removed the night before. The only thing left that still carried Sparrow's scent. They didn't return to the cabin. They stayed in Heartwarming, unable to go home without a piece of their family. In the days that followed, Amelia and Toby began a desperate search, clinging to hope. They posted flyers everywhere: gas stations, grocery stores, cafes, lampposts. Each one bore the same plea: missing dog, border collie named Sparrow. Fast reflexes, intelligent, especially friendly. If found, please call 415-82X-XXXX. Reward offered. They took to social media. Amelia joined every lost pet group she could find, sending photos and descriptions. But most replies were shallow condolences. No sightings, no sounds, no trace. Toby grew quieter than ever. He spent hours staring at a paper map spread on the wooden table, circling every place they had searched. Each night before bed, he would silently place the red scarf on a small shrine Amelia had made, beside a photo of Sparrow smiling gently. "He didn't run away," Toby whispered one rainy night. "Someone took him." Amelia squeezed his hand. "I believe you, and I promise we'll find him." One foggy morning, while brewing coffee in the temporary kitchen, Amelia's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Want to see your dog again? Go to the old hunting lodge near Icefall Creek before sunset today. Come alone." Amelia froze, her heartbeat thundered in her chest. She read it again and again, hands trembling. No name, no detail, just a chilling direction. She took it to the town police. A young officer read it, then shook his head. "No evidence. Untraceable message, vague location. You shouldn't risk this." "You don't understand," Amelia replied, eyes red. "Sparrow isn't just a dog. He's all we have left." The officer sighed. "If something happens out there, we might not get there in time." Amelia left the station, gripping her phone like it was the last thread of hope. She knew if they waited too long, they might lose Sparrow forever. Toby stood waiting by the truck. He didn't ask. One look at her eyes and he knew. "Are you going alone?" Amelia hesitated. He clutched the red scarf. "I'm not letting you go alone." The old pickup left town around noon. The road to Icefall Creek wasn't on any map. They drove through dense forest over snow-covered hills. Amelia had once photographed war zones. She knew the danger, but this time she had no choice. After more than 2 hours, the old hunting lodge appeared. A dilapidated wooden structure with a rusted tin roof hidden deep in the icy valley. Snow blanketed the roof. The door leaned off its hinges. No voices, no fresh tracks. Amelia's heart nearly stopped. She held Toby's hand. "If anything feels wrong, run back to the truck, lock the doors, and don't move." Toby nodded. His eyes held a rare, fierce resolve. Inside the lodge was dark and cold. Broken beams, musty air, and rusted iron filled the space. Amelia stepped slowly, like navigating through a faded photograph. Then she heard it. A soft bark, faint, weak. "Sparrow," Toby whispered. They followed the sound to a back room. A wooden door hung ajar. Amelia gently pushed it open. The hinges creaked. In the darkness, a row of metal cages appeared. In the third cage, a dog lay motionless, bandaged front leg ribs showing. But the eyes, still those eyes, Sparrow. Toby rushed forward. "Sparrow, it's me!" The dog lifted his head, tail wagging faintly, then fell still. Amelia choked back tears. "Toby, go to the truck. Call the police, now." "What about you?" "I won't leave him again." As Toby ran out, Amelia used a crowbar to pry open the lock. But Sparrow wasn't alone. 4 other dogs, rare breeds, all caged, emaciated, trembling. Their eyes pleaded. She knew then this wasn't just a theft. This was a dog trafficking ring. Suddenly the front door opened. Footsteps. Amelia turned, face to face with Bradley Sloan. His eyes were ice. "You shouldn't have come here. You're stealing dumb, innocent creatures. No one needs to know, without proof." Now there is. Amelia raised her phone recording. "And the police are on their way." Bradley lunged, reaching for the phone, but a siren wailed outside. The town police had arrived in time. They tackled him before her eyes. Toby burst in moments later, throwing himself around Amelia and Sparrow. In the report, police confirmed that Bradley was the link in a rare dog smuggling ring, targeting standout dogs at competitions. Sparrow was one of them, but the only one rescued whole, untouched. A few days later, the 3 returned to the cabin. Sparrow was still weak, but recovering each day. Toby stayed close, never leaving his side. Amelia began writing their story, not for the news, but for those who had once lost something precious and dared to hope again. And on the cabin's front door, Toby hung a small wooden sign. "This is the home of those who never give up." Winter passed. The snow melted slowly, as if reluctant to leave the land where the pain had sprouted something tender. Amelia's old wooden cabin on the edge of the Alaskan forest still stood quietly, but inside everything had changed. After the ordeal at the hunting lodge, after nightmares gave way to tears of reunion, Sparrow was healing. He still limped slightly, but each day he stood a little stronger. His once matted fur now glistened, brushed daily by Toby. The bandages were finally gone, revealing a soft patch of new fur. proof of a wound that once existed but had healed. Amelia couldn't take her eyes off him. Every time she saw Sparrow lying by the fireplace, eyes half closed, ears perking, whenever Toby laughed, her heart beat a little steadier. One early spring morning before the sun pierced the thin mist, Toby tiptoed over to Amelia. In his hands he held a folded drawing pages from the thick sketchbook he carried everywhere. "For you," he whispered. "I drew it last night." Amelia opened it. On a snowy white background stood three figures: a small boy upright, a woman with long flowing hair, and a ponibamta, tail-high head raised. Then they stood together beneath snow-covered trees in a sky painted with soft pink light. Below, in carefully drawn letters, Toby had written, "Family is where we are saved." Amelia couldn't speak, but she simply nodded, holding the drawing close to her chest as if embracing something she hadn't dared believe in for years, that she still had a chance to start again. That night, Amelia sat at her old desk and opened a weathered notebook. Inside were notes from her years as a war photographer, then pages of lonely journal entries scribbled through long winters. On the final page she wrote, "I survived war, but today for the first time I truly began to live again." Then she paused. A thought emerged, small but clear. How many people out there were just like her, once lost, once broken, once convinced they couldn't be healed? And how many dogs, abandoned, hurt, forgotten, were just waiting for a chance? Amelia decided to build something different. Not a hospital, not a shelter, but a place where wounded people and broken dogs could heal side by side. She called it Haven Paw, the paw of hope. The journey began with converting the old storage shed behind the cabin into a warm space, with a kitchen, beds, and a yard for dogs to run free. Amelia posted volunteer calls. To her surprise, people came. A veteran named Walter had lost a close friend in Iraq and now battled depression. A woman named Lorna, once addicted, is now rebuilding her life. A young man who lost his father in an accident and felt no connection to anyone. Then came the dogs, one-eyed dogs. Dogs are afraid of thunder. Dogs abandoned by roadsides. They all found their way to Haven Paw, as if guided by an invisible thread. Toby became Sparrow's main caregiver and the unofficial assistant trainer for new arrivals. He no longer shied from strangers, no longer flinched at sirens. He ran, laughed, played, and led. Amelia still photographed everything, but now her lens no longer captured pain. It captured healing. One photo, Walter sitting on the grass, a golden retriever resting its head on his knee. Another, Lorna holding a trembling puppy, tears falling as it licked her hand for the first time. And finally, the largest framed image at Haven Paw, Toby, Sparrow, and Amelia, hand in paw beneath a sky where winter had melted into spring. Haven Paw needed no large sign. People came because they heard whispers of a place deep in the woods where no one asked, "Who are you?" but only, "Do you need to stay?" 1 year after opening, Amelia stood on the cabin's porch as snow gently fell. Sparrow lay at her feet, a little older now, but his eyes were still bright of the day they were reunited. Toby was in the yard leading a small group of volunteers, laughter echoing. A young reporter from the local paper arrived, curious about this quiet sanctuary. "Can you tell me about your journey?" he asked, recorder in hand. Amelia looked up at the silver-streaked sky and smiled, a smile no longer hiding, no longer masked. Then she said, "I used to think I was the one who saved that dog, but maybe it was Sparrow who saved my soul." On an early autumn afternoon, as the forest blushed gold and the lake mirrored the sky like glass, Amelia sat in an old rocking chair, a warm mug in hand, watching two figures run across the grass. Toby and Sparrow, the same dog who once lay silent behind metal bars, now leaping like he'd never known pain. Children's laughter floated through the peaceful air. Four paws danced across the field, and Amelia's heart stirred with something indescribable. A year ago, she had lived in silence. A year ago, she believed joy had forever left her life. But then that stray dog, with weary eyes and a limp, walked into her world like a soft miracle. And now that miracle had become a light, not just for her, but for everyone once scarred by life. Sparrow was not just a rescued dog. He was living proof that even if we are broken, we can be reborn. At Haven Paw, once a lonely cabin, every day is a chance to heal. People once convinced they weren't worthy of love now laugh, embrace, and open their hearts to creatures small, loyal, and brave. Amelia had once been a soldier, a photographer, a survivor. Now she is the one who plants hope. And the strange thing is, she never planned to be. She never tried to become an inspiration. All she did was listen to a weak bark in the forest kneel and whisper, "I won't let you die here." Sometimes the smallest act sparks the greatest change. The story of Amelia, Toby, and Sparrow isn't a fairy tale. There's no magic, no wand, but perhaps that's why it's more real than anything else, because it could be your story or someone you know. Here are a few truths we might carry with us. Healing is a journey, not a destination. Amelia didn't recover overnight. She stumbled. She panicked. She almost gave up. But it was the small, everyday steps, caring for Sparrow, opening up to Toby, creating space for strangers, that slowly mended her heart. No one is useless even when you feel that way. Toby, a boy who had no mother, no words, was the first to believe that Sparrow could do something extraordinary. And in doing so, he saved his grandmother from the silence of sorrow. Dogs aren't just pets. They are friends. They are shelters. They are family. Sparrow didn't speak. He didn't ask for anything, but he stayed, quiet, patient, and unwavering. No matter where you are, no matter what pain you carry, believe this small creature like Sparrow can remind you that goodness still exists. Family isn't always made of blood. It's made of those who see your scars, your fears, your past, your future, and choose to stay. For Amelia, the family wasn't just Toby. It was also Sparrow, Walter, Lorna, and every soul that once wandered but found each other at Haven Paw. You don't have to be okay to start helping others. Amelia didn't wait until her mind was steady to open the center. She began when her hands were still shaking, and it was in helping others that she learned to heal herself. If you've stayed with us until now, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for giving the story of Sparrow, Toby, and Amelia a place in your time. Thank you for believing that stories don't have to be grand, just true and full of feeling, to change the way we see the world. If you see yourself in any part of this journey, please remember it's never too late to begin again. It's never too late to love, to heal, and to forgive others and yourself. If you love healing stories like this, if you've ever cried because of a dog's gentle lick, if you believe that every living being, human or four-legged, deserves a second chance, please hit subscribe so we can keep sharing the goodness. And if you're somewhere right now in the middle of a storm, a winter, or a sleepless night, know this: you are not alone, because sometimes salvation doesn't come from something big. It comes from a stray dog with eyes that say, "I am not going anywhere. I'm here for you." See you in the next story. I may be the one telling it, but you're the one who helps it live on. Thank you. And may you always find light, even if it's just from a silent gaze.